cyberpunk, nanotechnology, batteries, and more on today's Wednesday Morning Drive. Hey everybody, Matt Cribbs here, and welcome to another Wednesday Morning Drive. How you doing? I'm doing good. It's a rainy day here in the Northeast. It's been a rainy week, actually. Kind of gray and damp and a little chilly, but, you know, it works. I actually like it better than hot, because hot you get all sweaty, but anyway, it is what it is. At least I don't have the sun in my eyes today, so that's a plus. And my glasses are crooked and not feeling right on my face. It's, I don't know, it's kind of odd that these hard, rigid things, you know, I wear them all the time, and that I have a piece of rigid material on my face that is comfortable. Everything else we wear is flexible, you know, because our bodies are flexible and we move around. But these things, rigid. So, you know, it is what it is. And that actually kind of fits into what I wanted to talk about today. I just finished a series of books that I completely forget their name. And I'm going to have to put it down in the description because I forget it. But it was basically a cyberpunk series of books. And cyberpunk is a genre that I love. It's cool. Sci-fi, science fiction in general is pretty awesome. I love the idea of thinking about, like, good. So actually, I like all science fiction, even crappy science fiction. It can be, you know, some science fiction stories are really just normal stories with robots and laser beams. Those are cool. I like those. Or spaceships. I like those. But I don't know if I would classify them as science fiction. One of great example of that is, you know, Star Wars, the classic. Star Wars is not really a science fiction story. Star Wars is a, you know, very traditional. It's kind of has, you know, elements of a Western, a coming of age story, a, you know, an epic tale. And it just happens to have laser guns and laser swords instead of regular swords and regular guns. So, you know, you could take away all the trappings of the distant past, which effectively is futuristic technologies, and you can still tell the story without any of the science fiction elements. So it's, I like that. Those are great too. But then there's also the science fiction, which I don't know if you call it hard science fiction. Hard science fiction is now kind of reserved for things like The Martian, where the science fiction part of it is as true to real science or what we know about real science as possible, except for maybe one or two little things that might be stretching the possibilities of what we know. But usually, like, it doesn't involve things like, you know, warp drives and teleporters and all those things that are probably not going to be possible ever. So, but the science fiction that I'm talking about is the ones where you take an idea or a set of ideas and you say, you know, how would that change humanity? How would that change society? How would that, what would people or things look like if this thing was true? And you kind of use that idea as a lens to not only say, what would we look like, but what does that mean for us today? Not necessarily explicitly, because that'd be pretty boring. There's nothing worse than a storyteller who takes his hammer and says, this is my point, get my point, because that's just insulting your audience. But, you know, it makes you think. Good science fiction makes you think. And I've read, you know, there's a bunch of good ones I've read very recently that are like that. Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson is a lot like that. The Three Body Problem by, I'm not even going to try to remember his name. It's a Chinese book originally, but, you know, all very good books that make you think about not only the technology and that stuff, but the human condition. And, you know, one of the reasons I like cyberpunk as a genre, someone is honking. the person behind me was honking because they wanted me to go straight, but there was a car in front of me and I couldn't block the intersection. So we just did the standard gesticulate wildly in the mirror thing so that people can I probably look like an idiot. But, you know, it's like, what can you do? There's a car in front of me. I don't care if you need to go somewhere. I can't go forward because that would be blocking the intersection. So whatever. People driving. Anyway, where was I? Cyberpunk is a genre, right? A lot of it's not necessarily, you know, total far future. It can be, but there's pretty much a set of, you know, conceits, a set of things that have evolved into this genre that exist. And they're, you know, body modification with either, you know, biological modifications or cybernetics. So you can have super strength and supervision and, you know, weapons, knives, Wolverine style, or spikes concealed in your arms and things like that. And that's one thing that exists. So, and then you generally have what's been, you know, the Matrix or the, you know, cyberspace or whatever you want to call it. Not the Matrix like the movie The Matrix. It was used before. But basically a kind of virtual reality-ish experience for computer interaction and hacking that typically they interact with without a screen. Like it's with a plug in their brain or neck or wrist or somewhere that you can plug into computers. And that's another thing that exists for it. So you have, you know, artificially enhanced human beings. You have this cyberspace that you can actually enter yourself, not just, you know, put a screen on your face and look at. They extend, a lot of times you extend that cyberspace concept in not only interacting with computers, but controlling, you know, remote vehicles or aircrafts or drones. And, you know, you take those elements, and typically there's an element of a, you know, strong, weak governments and strong corporations and a seedy underside that exists to all of this stuff. And you take those elements together and mix them up and you kind of pretty much got most of cyberpunk type stories out there. You know, maybe you won't have one or two of the elements, or you can throw in magic and stuff and you got Shadowrun, which is also very cool, but a whole other stretch. But what I think is really interesting about that setting and about that genre is the fact that those elements themselves all have at their, well, combined together, but each individually actually kind of force you to ask these really interesting, hard questions about the nature of who people are and what is, you know, what is humanity. And that's a really interesting thought and interesting area that I like to explore, and especially, you know, in what I read and think about and things like that. And usually, sometimes there's AI. There's usually AI involved in some of these things too, and which ties in. So, you know, if you look at the pieces individually in there, if you talk about, you know, body modifications and cyborgs and things like that, it kind of tackles the question from what is our bodies and what is the difference between, well, you know, what are our bodies? And so, like, if you lose a leg and you have a prosthetic leg, I don't think anyone would argue that you're, you know, not human. You're a human being with an artificial leg. But, you know, what if you lose both legs? And, or, you know, and if it's a prosthetic leg, that's almost like a pair of glasses. It's a hard, rigid machine device that you wear on your body. But, you know, Cyberpunk usually takes it further, and that it's, you know, interacts with your nervous system and you can control it, and it's really cool. We're getting some stuff close to that, but not yet. And so not only is it a replacement for a missing limb, but they are, you know, stronger, faster, better than normal limbs. So people do this voluntarily. You know, they want to be a fast runner, so they chop off both their legs and replace them with robot legs, and they can run faster and jump faster. Or they, you know, go all Wolverine on it and replace their skeleton with adamantium, well, not adamantium because that's Wolverine, but with, you know, whatever it is, the technology they're using. Replace your eyes with eyes that can see in the dark, or that have a computer terminal, or whatever it is. And, you know, when you start doing that, you very quickly hit that wall of how much, or the question comes up of how much of a person is tied to their meat body, and how much, if you start replacing limbs and arms and, you know, nervous systems and endocrine systems and skeletons and pieces of brains with computer augmentation, how much of that has to happen before a person may not be a person anymore? And is that point ever something that happens or not? And so, you know, it's really cool. It's kind of getting down to the essence of what is it that makes a human being. It's kind of the same thing for, you know, the neural interface into a computer world. Also hits the same kind of problem or questions, but from the different side. So if you can take your mind out of your body and put it into this computer system, well, at least take all your senses, you know, at what point could your body be just held alive by life support, and you live within this virtual world, and you are the, you know, where does that line of what your reality is, you know, blur? Are you really a person hooked up to life support on a bed, or are you really this, what you experience? And, you know, what is the nature of your mind and its relationship to your body? When you're in there, where are you? And, you know, also a incredible question. And then, you know, you tack on artificial intelligence. So what is the difference between a, you know, an entity that has evolved in silicon and has, you know, can be intelligent and think, that is, you know, based on computer code, versus a entity that is based on, you know, biological code or neurons firing and chemical interactions? And what are the differences between those two minds? Are AIs people, or are, you know, or are they not? Are they simply programs? And what is human? What is a person? What is a entity? And so, you know, it's just, I love it that all these things together, all these little conceits that make up this genre together, all kind of hit that same problem of what does it mean to be alive, and what does it mean to be a conscious entity, or a, you know, notice I'm avoiding the word person, because is person even the right word? You know, if we make an artificially intelligent, sentient life form someday, is that a person, or is it a sentient life form? Like, what is that? And so it's just, it really makes you, you know, wonder and think about and appreciate, you know, what we have. And I love asking myself these questions. So, you know, very, very cool and very, very interesting in Cyberpunk on that. And why I love the genre, and why even bad Cyberpunk sometimes can be, you know, good. Some Cyberpunk, and maybe it's not bad, is the wrong word, but some of it's just about guys with cool laser guns in their arms shooting stuff up. And, you know, that can be kind of fun too, but that's not the, but even that kind of, you know, maybe accidentally, but will make you ask those questions. So very, 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 very cool. And I've been reading about it lately, and I thought it was interesting. So, yeah, that was the Cyberpunk side of it. And as I was having these reading this book and talking about this with McCribs number 2.0, my son, we started talking about, you know, some of those technologies, and we started talking about modern. Hey everyone, remember this view? My battery died on my GoPro because I forgot to charge it. Can't forget to charge it. Don't have a lot of space on my phone to do this, but anyway, did want to finish up my thought. Not exactly sure when that cut out, but I've been talking about, you know, nanotechnology, which also kind of sometimes exists in these cyberpunk worlds. And, you know, modern day, we have a lot of diseases, and wouldn't it be great if we had little robots that could go into our bodies and fix things? it would be awesome. It'd be great. But, you know, he had never heard of the gray goo scenario, which is kind of the apocalyptic view of what could go wrong with nanotechnology. And he thought it was really interesting and scary and something, you know, we should talk about today. And so if you don't know about it, it's kind of like, you know, for artificial intelligence, there's the Terminator, there's a Skynet scenario where we can involve these, you know, robots that want to either enslave and or kill us, and they think faster than us, and so humanity is either extinct or almost dead. Kind of like in Terminator, Skynet, because that's why it would be called that. But gray goo is a little more abstract. I don't know if it's been fictionalized in any form, but basically it goes, you make these little robots that can take apart, you know, material at the molecules and assemble them into other things, which is what nanotechnology could do. And if if they have a programming error and they just like start replicating themselves, building more of themselves out of control, and taking apart raw materials and not putting them back in together into anything useful except more of themselves, and they take apart more things and they make more of themselves, and they make junk matter and just make, you know, take apart more things and make more of themselves, all of a sudden you have this big seething puddle of, you know, robots that are just destroying real things and making nothing useful in return. They are making a gray, self-replicating goo. And so that's the scenario of what could happen bad, or one scenario of what could happen bad with nanotechnology. So, you know, all these futuristic things, and while it's science fiction is great because it lets us envision these things before we actually accidentally do them. And, you know, maybe it'll prove that nanotechnology is not feasible and we'll never be able to worry about the gray goo scenario, but the fact that we can think about what if lets us potentially and hopefully avoid doing something similar with technologies that do prove to be possible. So, you know, I don't know. The future is very cool. It's exciting. Maybe it's bleak. I don't know, but I can't wait to make it happen. So, which is what we're doing every day by living our lives. So, anyway, that was what I wanted to talk about. Hope you have a great day. Sorry for the abrupt change of camera angle. I'll make sure I charge up the GoPro next time. So, have a great day. I'll see you next time. More Lineage, more Minecraft. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a member. See what I'm up to. And don't forget to leave a like if you like the video. I'll see you later. Bye.